I should first probably say that I didn't actually know until about 2 minutes ago that I was supposed to speak about failure, so that can be your demonstration of failure itself. I decided today maybe that the most interesting way to approach this was just to talk about the questions that I most get asked, which ironically is exactly how Stana opened. Why are you here? It's a strange story for me about why I'm here in Bulgaria initially, because it was actually originally a mistake. I'm always a bit ashamed to admit that. I had been working for 5 years in the same company, and I decided I wanted to change. And I couldn't really decide what to do, and then I decided that maybe I should go and get some international experience. And I thought, I know what I'll do. I will brush up on my Spanish, because I had been living in Honduras for a while previously. I'd forgotten most of my Spanish, and I thought, I know, I will look for some intensive Spanish courses or internships. And I found a program, and I went to the interview for my Spanish internship with dreams of the sun, the paella. And halfway through the interview, the guy said to me, well, I mean, I can put you forward for Spain, but the chances of you getting it are really small, or you can go to Bulgaria. I said, I'll think about it. And by the end of the interview, he hadn't really given me a chance to think, and he had decided that I was going to Bulgaria. So I returned home to my mother, and she said, how was the interview? Fully expecting me to say, oh, I'm going off to Granada or somewhere exciting. And I said, I think I'm going to Bulgaria. She wasn't quite sure how that was going to improve my Spanish. I'm still not sure. And so my dream changed slightly. And... And I found myself a few years ago here for a 2-month internship. It was an amazing experience. As I said, I knew absolutely nothing about Bulgaria before I came. I didn't know where it was. The only thing I knew is that we have a children's character called Uncle Bulgaria on children's TV in the UK. If you're ever interested, Google him. He's quite a strange-looking character. I presume he's from Roma background, because he spends most of his time picking up rubbish in the cartoon. It's quite a strange one. But anyways, so I came here. I thought it was a beautiful country. I loved the culture. I loved the countryside. I went and saw so much of Bulgaria. And it got under my skin. Admittedly, there were still things that I found difficult to get used to, most of which was being handed a skanky pair of flip-flops every time I went to someone's house. I just couldn't understand it. I've got a mild foot phobia, and so putting on someone's old pair of flip-flops was a bit weird for me. Anyway, then that was only for 2 months. I left Bulgaria. I went away for some time. I got a boring office job, and then I got the opportunity to go for 6 months. Here's my cheesy holiday snaps from Ghana, and I worked for a charity in Ghana looking at child trafficking issues for 6 months, and it really inspired me to do something that would make a difference. And so I started looking for opportunities to get into the charity sector. And I found out about the European Voluntary Service. And after another boring office job, I found myself with the opportunity to come back to Bulgaria as a volunteer for Karita Sofia. And when I first came, I was living with an absolutely crazy, psychotic housemate who would threaten me. She would come and scream in my face. She would throw chairs at me. And so I spent a lot of time trying to avoid my house. And I spent a lot of time in cafes, and therefore had a lot of time on my hands to learn Bulgarian, having no friends whatsoever and no house to go home to. So I spent a lot of time learning Bulgarian. And actually, after 3 months, I was able to hold a basic conversation in Bulgarian. However, the thing that's most frustrating for anyone who actually does speak some Bulgarian is that no matter how well you speak Bulgarian as a foreigner in Bulgaria, it really doesn't matter. Firstly, people will automatically do a bizarre mime show for you. Like if I go to Bila, the women just start, I say like zdravej, and they start going. And the other most frustrating thing is you can hold a 10-minute conversation with someone in Bulgarian, but then if they realise you can read and write the alphabet, they're incredibly impressed, and you think, I just held a conversation with you in Bulgarian. So that's why I wrote this here, because I really find it frustrating that it doesn't matter. Basically, after the first 5 minutes, it doesn't matter because you've impressed everybody that you've tried to learn the language. Having said that, I do think it's something really important, and for me, I'm really glad that I have made some effort to learn the language, because I do think you get a lot more into the culture, you make more genuine friendships with people, and I also think it's important to show that you respect the country. I do know that I've come across quite a lot of foreigners who've made no effort whatsoever to integrate, have made no effort whatsoever to learn the language, and for me, the ultimate example of this was when I was with a guy who'd been here for a few months, and we were waiting for the tram, and I said to him, okay, we can get, I don't know, the number 4 or the 5. And he said, oh, yes, or the 3A. And I said, the 3A? The 3A doesn't exist. And he said, yes, it does. And he said, look, it's coming now. But anyway, talking of the tram, I guess that it's worth knowing I don't really get much public transport. As previously mentioned, I cycle pretty much everywhere. I started cycling in Sofia because I didn't know anybody, and again, it was an opportunity for me to make friends. I started going along to the regular Velos Hodka meetings on Sunday mornings and Thursday evenings, and that has led to all of these sorts of questions that I get on a very regular basis. Isn't it too dangerous to cycle? Isn't that too far to cycle? As I said, I started I just bought in the second-hand bike market by Vasilevsky Stadium a really rusty old mountain bike. Started going kind of 20, 30 kilometers rides. Gradually they got longer and longer. After a few months I'd been here, the organisation organised a ride to the seaside, which I went on the first 3 days of. And over those 3 days we cycled 270 kilometers. I told the people that I was working with, they said, oh my goodness, that's so dangerous. I should mention at this point I was working with mostly 90-year-old ladies. They said, that's so dangerous, you have to be very careful about your health. You know, it's to cycle 70 kilometers a day, it's really pushing it, you know. Anyway, the next thing I knew, they got longer and longer, and then a friend said to me, do you want to come to cycle a brevet? And I said, what on earth is a brevet? She said, I don't know, it's some kind of long cycle ride. So I turned up in the morning at a petrol station, was given some kind of official card that I had to get stamped to various locations, and it turns out that brevets are official rides starting at 200 kilometers distance, where you have to stop at regular checkpoints and get stamped, and at the end you kind of have an accredited ride with them. So I cycled this 200 kilometer ride. It was probably 100 kilometers more than I'd ridden before. I finished the ride and I thought I was about to die, and the organizer of the ride said to me, oh, if you ride a 300 kilometer in the next 3 months, then you can get a free medal. And I thought, I've just nearly died doing 200 kilometers. Why would I cycle 300 kilometers? 3 months later, I found myself riding a 300 kilometer ride. The next month, I cycled a 400 kilometer ride. The next month, I rode 600. The following month, I rode 1,200. And the following month, I rode another 1,200. And I've ridden now all over the world. I've ridden in Greece, Romania, Serbia. I've ridden, that was in Paris. We went Brest-Paris. That was 1,200 kilometers. This was the 1,001 mile ride in Italy, 1,600 kilometers. And I think for me, that's an amazing thing that's happened to me in Bulgaria, because if it wasn't for the fact that I had been here with no friends, I probably would never have taken up cycling. My friends have supported me so much. They've believed in me more than I would ever believe in myself. I mean, with this 1,600 kilometer example, actually Setso, who's in that picture, he actually just booked me on the trip because I didn't think I could do it. He booked my insurance and my hotel and my transport and told me I was doing it, and I did it. So I think it's really taught me a lot about the potential that you have and the importance of self-belief, and also the importance of having friends around you who believe in you. And I think that's been really an incredible experience for me that would never have happened to me if I didn't come to Bulgaria. I suppose also on that, on the same kind of theme of having cycled around everywhere in Bulgaria, the other question I always get asked, have you been to, the minute I say that I'm from somewhere else, have you been to Koprivstica, have you been to Blagoevgrad, have you been to Varna, have you been to everywhere? And the most bizarre thing is that if you respond to that question with yes, have you, 90% of the time the Bulgarian asking you has not been to the location that they want you to visit. The next question, do you think Bulgarians are friendly? And I have to say that my first impression when I came to Bulgaria was that people were incredibly friendly. For me, being from the UK, British people are quite a reserved nation, and I found it quite astonishing that I would be sitting on my own in a cafe for a few months, and people would come up to me and start talking to me. They would start asking me who I was, what I was doing in Bulgaria, inviting me to go on all sorts of different trips, and really being welcoming, and I found that an incredible experience. But unfortunately, over the kind of last few years, I've discovered that there's two sides to Bulgarians, which is true of everywhere, but also there's two definitions of a foreigner in Bulgaria, and I'm of the desirable foreigner type, and unfortunately the refugees who I work with are not. And I have found it really a struggle working with refugees to see the difference in the attitudes that they are faced with as opposed to the ones that I'm faced with. The comments that they often overhear, people talking about them assuming they don't speak Bulgarian, never assume that a foreigner doesn't speak Bulgarian. Comments said to us when we go into the refugee camps, like, you know, how are the little terrorists doing today, about 8-year-old children. And that has been a real challenge for me. But what has been really rewarding is that I have been able to give a lot of people the opportunities to directly meet refugees. So I started working. This is an average day at work for me. This is in Ovchekupel, and I started working on the refugee project as a volunteer. And we had, at the time, we had Bulgarian and English classes. I started an English class, and I had students 3 times a week. And that was an amazing opportunity for me and an experience to see just how quickly people learn languages when they're motivated. And I ended up with some really good friends from that first English class. As the months passed, I started to kind of ask questions about our program, and I said, why are we only doing English and Bulgarian, and why are we only doing it in Ovchekupel? And so we introduced IT lessons, art lessons, music lessons, sport, gardening, anything you can think of, and anything where we could find volunteers. We recruited tens of volunteers, and now during the probably 2.5 years that I've been here, we've had probably more than 300 volunteers come through the programs that I work on, if not more. I asked why are we only in Ovchekupel, so we expanded to Vojnerampa. There you can see me also being a highly cheerful volunteer. And then we expanded again and went into Vraždebna. And then we had a full timetable of activities, and at any point up to 100 volunteers working on the project. And that's been amazing for me to see the difference that all those volunteers are able to make to those kids and those adults who otherwise just hang around every day and have literally nothing to do because unfortunately there's no integration program in place in their camps. At the end of that first year, we won the prize for the Best Volunteer Initiative of the Year, and that's us meeting the president. So that was an exciting moment, and one that I probably hadn't expected when I first arrived here. But I didn't stop asking questions, and so the following year I said, okay, we're now in all of the open centres, why are we not in the closed detention centre where the kids probably need our help most? So we expanded and started a new project in Busmansi Detention Centre where the kids are only allowed outside of their building 1 hour per day, and they're not allowed any resources, any games, any pens, any pencils, anything like that. So I get emotional most times when I go there, but I'm really proud of the work that we do there, because before that nobody was doing any activities in those camps. I then started to work more with my colleagues who were working more with the people living in the outside addresses, and we decided, we came up with the idea to start a mentoring program where we matched Bulgarians with refugees to basically have a new friend so that they could go for coffee, they could practice the language, and so far that's one of the groups. We've had 4 different groups, and we've matched nearly 100 refugees with a Bulgarian volunteer who they meet once per week and go and do nice things. And that was really inspired out of my own experience of knowing just how important my friendships with Bulgarians have been to me in terms of integrating here, in terms of being able to practice and learn the language, and in terms of getting to know the culture and feeling like this is my home. And so I'm very proud of that program. And last year we won another prize and met the president again. So that was kind of our programs. So now the most important questions. Do you like Bozar? I have to say I like every form of food and drink in Bulgaria, but Bozar has beaten me and I do not like it. And just for your enjoyment, here is my ex-boyfriend trying Bozar for the first time. It's worth leaving up for a little while, I think. The other most important questions that I get asked on a very regular basis: does it rain every day in the UK? No. Why do British people drive on the right-hand side of the road? Left-hand side of the road, sorry. This is actually, I will tell you the answer. It's because traditionally when we were on horseback, we needed to have our sword hand free for the oncoming traffic. Why do you drive on the other side? No? No? Why do you have separate hot and cold taps? I can also give you the answer, but it's quite boring, but it's about hygiene. But generally, the answer to these questions I answer with another question, like, why are there post boxes attached to your trams? And why are you the only country in the whole world where you put your tram ticket on the left-hand side and not the right-hand side? So every country has its own little oddities, so I don't think Bulgaria or the UK are exceptions to this rule. Okay. Very quickly in summary, like, what have I learned from my experience of being in Bulgaria? I think for me, I can kind of sum it in like a few points. Firstly, as I said already, the importance of friendship for me has been incredibly important to my experience in Bulgaria. It's the reason I'm still here. If I hadn't made friends here, I would not still be here. And my friends have really pushed me, like I said, to believe in myself. They've gone beyond the level of what I would ever expect. I had a friend who drove me all the way to the seaside just so I could complete a cycling event, and she went back in the morning to work. I've had very supportive colleagues. I've had who've allowed me to try new things and kind of make a difference. On which note, I think number two, everybody can make a difference. I think there's something about being in another country that frees you to try things and frees you to make a go of something. And I think when I look now at the programs that I started in the last 2.5 years, there's now 16 people, including me, working on the programs that I started. Plus, I don't know how many volunteers. And knowing that all those people are making a difference in the everyday life of refugees who are having a pretty hard time of it is something that I'm very, very proud of. But again, I think sometimes when you're in your own box and you're at home, you don't realise that you have that potential to do that. So I think that's been like an amazing experience for me. Finally, yeah, just give people flip-flops when they come to your house. They really like it for some reason. So, and what have I not learned? Spanish. Thank you.